everyone, it's Morgan Yates. It is no secret that I'm someone who loves to travel. Over the past few years, I've taken you guys along on so many of my adventures around the world. Obviously, we can't do that right now. I thought for today's video, a fun way to kind of look back and reflect and revisit some old memories would be to share 20 lessons I've learned from traveling, because I feel like our generation has kind of this like wanderlust mentality and we really glorify traveling, and I'm definitely part of that. I've been able to go to 19 countries in the past 3 years, but I've also really grown a lot and learned a lot of things along the way that I feel like has made me the person that I am. So we're gonna do some reflecting today. Leave me a comment letting me know where you want to travel when all of this is over. Before we hop in, I wanted to thank today's video sponsor, Zhiyun, who just launched their new Smooth XS stabilizing gimbal. I know we all love to capture our trips on Instagram, so if you're someone who's wanting to step up your photos or especially your video footage, this gimbal can really elevate what you're able to get on the road using only your phone. This is what it looks like. It's a super compact foldable design. It can fit easily into your purse, especially a backpack if you're sightseeing all day somewhere. There's also a built-in telescopic stick so you can get those super wide angle shots. This is really great for stabilizing your video shots. So as the cameras on phones start to get better and better, thinking ahead for myself and my own travel vlogs, I feel like I could get away with using only my phone thanks to something like this. Even when it comes to just walking, talking to the camera shots, sometimes a vlog camera can get super shaky, and with this you can tell that the footage is super smooth. It has a built-in instant landscape and portrait switch. You just push this M button on the side and it'll automatically switch the phone orientation for you. And when you get the device, you just set it up using Bluetooth to an app on your phone that has a lot of awesome tools, including object tracking. So we're gonna talk in a second. My first thing I've learned is how to do things alone that we're gonna be talking about. But when it comes to footage and doing that alone, if I were going on a trip by myself, I can just set this somewhere and then on the app, choose my face or my body or whatever as the object I wanna track. And then anywhere I walk in the shot, it's just gonna smoothly follow me, so you can get really awesome footage without having someone else need to shoot for you necessarily. The app also has a gesture control. So again, let's say I'm wanting to take a photo alone. I set up where I want my shot to be, and then I can just wave my arm or do a V motion or a peace sign, and it'll count down to take a photo or start a video for you. There are a lot of awesome tools in this, cool editing features in the app as well. There are even built-in filters for like your face if that's something you're interested in. But I just think this is a really awesome tool for people who may not know a lot about cameras or camera gear, and you don't need to. All you need is your phone and this device. It also comes with these little like tripod feet that you can screw on if you're needing to balance this somewhere a little more complicated. And I'll have it linked below. It can be super helpful for your next adventure or even just stepping up your content at home. So thank you again to them for sponsoring this video. We're gonna jump into the 20 things I've learned over the years from traveling. The first one being how to do things alone. I recently mentioned in a Q&A how several years back when I was in college, it's been like 5 or 6 years, but I was signed up to go on a study abroad trip that was just for a summer going to London. I ended up canceling the trip, literally losing money, like it was paid for, because I didn't know anyone and I was scared of like going without a friend as a crutch. So that was years ago, but over the past year or two, I finally conquered this fear of like going places where I don't know anyone, just being able to go on an adventure by myself and trust that I'm gonna meet people along the way. About this time last year, I went on a really fun Mediterranean train trip. There were like 7 to 10 of us. A couple of years ago, I also went on a brand trip to Paris where I didn't know anyone. In those situations, like it might sound small because it's like, yeah, you're meeting up with people and whatever, but it can be intimidating. I feel proud of myself that I have crossed that bridge where I'm willing to go into situations alone, especially so far from home and things that are for such a long period of time. I feel like I've just built some independence there, so that's a fun one. Secondly, kind of building off of that a little bit similar, but I've learned the value in meeting people and doing things with other people over doing them just by yourself. This kind of might seem to contradict my last one because I think it also is valuable to do things alone. A little story with this one, the first international trip I'd ever been on a few years ago, which was to Greece. Me and Adrian were going. It was another like group travel trip, so we were gonna be meeting up with like 30 people around our age. And looking back, I think we've talked about this, I guess we just didn't know like how these trips worked. We kind of thought that, oh, they just plan everything for you and you're like going around as a group, but we didn't comprehend that like you make friends with these people, and that's also kind of like the point of traveling in a group. So we went into this like consciously thinking that we were only gonna hang out with each other. As soon as we got there, we realized that there were a lot of really cool people on the trip, and that was to our benefit to like step outside of just like our little friendship unit and be immersed with everyone else. And I can't imagine if we went on that trip or any of my following group trips and like just stuck to the people that I went into it with. And I think that applies to life too. You're better off letting people in to your life, into your close circle, into what you're going through. The third thing I've learned is public transportation skills. I've never lived somewhere where I've even really needed to like take buses, I guess. Like nowhere I've lived has had a strong metro system or subway, but so many places abroad have really awesome public transportation systems. I learned I'm pretty good at picking up on my surroundings pretty quickly and remembering directions. I think I just generally have a good sense of direction, but throughout time I just have become more comfortable with like navigating different public transport systems, and it kind of gives me some peace of mind going into like new places I've never been to before. It's getting hot in here because I turned off the air. Number 4, I've learned that I am happiest at the beach. I feel like any trip I've been on, my favorite day or even just my favorite trips in general have been ones that involve lots of beaches, like a boat day. Even when I went to Barcelona a couple years ago, it was in May, so it wasn't super hot, so we didn't get to really go lay out at the beach, but my favorite memory even there was when we stayed up all night going out and watched the sunrise on the beach the next morning. I just realized that that's a very life-giving thing for my soul, is just laying out on the beach, specifically drinking an Aperol Spritz. That can cure a lot. I think that is one of my biggest joys in life. 5th thing I've learned, if people say you need water shoes to do something, swallow your pride and buy the water shoes. No one looks cute in them. You look whack walking around in a swimsuit and these closed-toed shoes. I somehow thought I had, I guess, feet made of steel when I went to the Dead Sea and was told to buy and bring water shoes, and I did not. And it's very salty, sharp ground, even though you're like in water, and it hurt a lot. So I ended up wearing my nice sandals like into the water, and they got ruined because I was stupid and didn't just buy water shoes to start with. So I learned my lesson when I was in Croatia. We went to the Krka waterfalls in this national park there that was beautiful. They said you need water shoes, and you better believe I got my water shoes. The 6th thing I've learned is that things don't always go according to plan. In fact, I would say like half the time things don't go according to plan, whether you're dealing with like a late ferry in Greece, those are literally always late, or you know, flight delays, canceled flights, you don't make your connection at your layover. Sometimes you have this big idea of an attraction that you're going to see, and it's just not what you thought it would be. That actually also is the case sometimes. But what those experiences have taught me is how to be flexible, how to roll with the punches. I feel like even more broadly in my life, these experiences traveling have made me a lot more chill because I've accepted that you can't control the outcome, but you can control your reaction. The 7th thing I've learned is that when traveling, the best things are often off the beaten path. This is especially true when it comes to things like restaurants. Like if you're on a main little boardwalk area by the water somewhere, like all of those restaurants that are out there, especially if they have photos of everything on the menu. I don't know why that's a correlation here, but like the food there's just not going to be good. I don't know what it is. It's going to be so expensive, and it's usually going to be kind of average. So following the restaurant example, I've learned if you want good food and you want to save money, you walk off the beaten path some. You go up a little bit farther away. This is a stretch, but I feel like it also is a good analogy for life. When we look at life and timelines and like comparing your life to other people's, you feel behind or like you question what you're doing because you're not doing the same thing as everyone else. It's good to remember that there's value in not being on the path that everyone else is on. Such a stretch, but I believe that. Number 8, when you're traveling, trusted recommendations are your best friend. Whether you know someone who's been to a place, even just like finding people on the internet who have been to a place. I do definitely wing things a lot of the time when I'm traveling, but also if you get recommendations for somewhere, you gotta take them. For example, we were in a city in Croatia. We went to the coolest bar I've maybe ever been to in my whole life. It was at the top of this tower that just looked so cool. You literally climb a ladder straight up to get into this. It had like a sweeping sunset view over the water, and that's somewhere I would have never thought to go because you don't even see it. Like you would never think that there's a bar up there. Go with your trusted recommendations. Number 9, over time I feel like I've just learned kind of the street smarts of traveling, if you will. I think this applies to like, I don't know, avoiding scams. I feel like if you're in a really touristy area, people are always trying to sell you on something, and you just have to kind of sometimes assume that it might not be the truth. For example, when I went to Petra in Jordan, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world, there were these guys there telling you that if you paid so much amount of money, they would walk you up to this viewpoint that like you couldn't get to unless you went with them or whatever. And they don't even work for Petra. They don't work there. It's a scam. We, on our own 2 feet, like saw where they were taking people and just walked up there because anyone can do it. Even just when it comes to like buying souvenirs places, you gotta realize most of that's made in China. You know, we gotta scope out your local place if you want like an authentic souvenir. Even in certain cities, we experience this a little bit in Italy. Even taxi drivers will try to charge you more because you're a tourist. So yeah, throughout time, I've just gained some street smarts. You do, as a tourist, of course, you always want to be respectful of the people and the place you're at, but like people do try to scam you when they know you're not from there and you don't know better. Number 10, I've learned how to persevere. I have been in some situations that were less than ideal. One time in Greece, I had food poisoning. It wasn't great. You know, it was 100 degrees out. Of course, it was on a day where we're traveling between islands, so we're having to take a ferry, which if you're nauseous, you know, boats aren't wonderful for that. And I truly thought, this is it for me. I'm going to die here. Despite what gets shown on Instagram, all moments of traveling are definitely not glamorous and perfect and like full of sunsets and whatever. Number 11, I feel like this should be common sense. The importance of respecting the place that you're in. American travelers have the worst reputation for just being obnoxious, being entitled. We especially need to remember when we go places that this is not America. It's not gonna be America, you know what I mean? That's the whole reason we're not in America, we're somewhere else. So we need to like abide by how they live in that place. It's important to show respect for people's culture and customs, even like if you don't really understand things, or like it's not something that you personally believe. A very small example, but like when we were in Jordan, again, it was super hot, but we wore long pants and like high, modest, the most modest tops we packed, just to respect the people there, because it's a mostly Muslim country. People mostly like strictly follow like dressing modestly, and we didn't want to disrespect that. It's like a very small thing. And then kind of similarly to that, number 12, I've just gained so much perspective on other people's lived experiences in different parts of the world. I feel like we really like glamorize Europe and we all want to go there, and like I'm with you, I do too. But I kind of feel like there's so much more to be actually learned by going to places that have like a vastly different culture. For me, I feel like I experienced this so much when I went to Israel and Jordan, especially in Jordan, I think because again, it's a mostly Muslim country, and we were there during Ramadan actually. Like you couldn't get food if you wanted it. Like restaurants are closed because they're fasting. I'm glad I had that experience because it's something I would never get in the US, you know what I mean? Also in Jordan, even though, like I said, we did dress as modestly as we could, we still stuck out like a sore thumb. Like literally we'd be walking around and people just like stare at you and like look, people were honking at us. I don't say that at all as like, poor me, like we stood out. More than anything, I'm glad that we like got that feeling on like such a small scale of like what it feels like, feeling like an outsider in a place. I've never felt that. Again, that's just so small compared to what I'm sure so many different people groups feel in other parts of the world, even just what certain people feel in different parts of America. That was just eye-opening. And then when we went into Jordan, we took a really long bus ride, and just like on the side of the road in the middle of just like desert land, we saw so many Syrian refugees camped out on the side of the road and like all these UNICEF tents. And for us, it was just like a sad moment of just reflecting on how none of us can control where we're born, but like it leads to such crazy different lives. Number 13, on a much lighter note, this pertains to the people I've met on all of my trips, especially when I do those big group travel trips. I've just learned and seen time and time again that people are just so cool and good and fun and unique and beautiful. I just feel like I've developed such an appreciation for people. It's so cool to see just like a short-term like glimpse at someone else's life who has this whole big life that they're going home to and whatever, getting to know them for a few days and like seeing how cool people are. I don't know, it's just fun. And number 14, kind of the other way around of that, I've learned that people like me for me. Being in a big group situation where you don't know anyone and you don't have a mutual friend, I feel like it's built my confidence a lot just seeing how different all these people are on these trips. Anyone I've become friends with hasn't been because of what they looked like or because they were a certain size or because they had these accomplishments or whatever. It's just been because of like who they are like as a person. And it's always so cool to see how a group of like 30 people from all over the world who are so different like can just appreciate each other and get along and like have such a wonderful time together. Again, it's just built my confidence a lot, seeing that like I don't ever have to like be anything other than myself and people are gonna like me for me. There's value in not trying to blend in. Number 15, a quick one. I've learned that the best view often requires a hike. In Italy, in Cinque Terre, I still don't know how to say that, it drives me crazy, but without a hike you don't get the view at all. And again, I just think that that can be a little analogy to life, that there are no shortcuts to a lot of valuable things, and that reaping a worthwhile reward requires putting in a lot of work. Don't love to hike, but worth it for the view. Number 16, this is more something I've done than learned, but it just sticks out in my mind so much that I had to include it. I have had so much good food all over the world. I mean, just delicious. Or I guess something I've learned is that I rarely, or maybe never, regret splurging on a nice meal. A big hobby of mine is like a nice dinner. I don't know why. I just love like a cool ambiance, like some good food. I've had some of my best meals abroad. The 17th thing I've learned is that it can always fit in a carry-on. I've packed for 17 days in Greece in a carry-on. I've packed for 2 weeks in Scandinavia in the winter. I went to Finland, Stockholm, Copenhagen, and Norway in like their peak winter season. We were packing ski pants, jackets, you name it, and I fit it in a carry-on, so there's really just no excuse. I've seen I can make it work. The next thing I've learned is how far my connection with you guys as an audience goes around the world. When Danielle and I were in Portugal, we were getting so many DMs from people in Portugal asking us to do a meetup when we were in Lisbon, and it was to the point they were like, should we just do it? Like, I didn't know I had this many people in Portugal. The evening before, we planned this impromptu meetup at like a little public square. We had so many people go. We literally expected like 5 people. Like, we were like, all right, max, this is probably gonna go for an hour, and it was like 4 hours because we just kept talking to everyone so much. Like, people who had taken like a 4-hour train or bus in, and that was crazy. Just being able to travel and see how far like this community stretches around the world has been really inspiring for me, and I've just felt very supported and encouraged, so thank you. Number 19, building off that, I've learned that the world is so small. For example, one time I was in a train station in Madrid. I literally turn around and the person beside me in this busy train station is my tour guide from my Greece trip the year before, and we both were like, we did like 4 double takes. We were like, what? Like, of the whole world, you're literally here. I only know like a couple people here and there in different countries, and then like we somehow keep crossing paths in like new places. Like my tour guide for that Mediterranean train trip ended up being in Croatia at the same time as us, like in the same city on the exact same day. Or just even like friends I've met on different trips, like who moved to London, like the day I happened to be going to London, so we got to hang out. I just love that. It's kind of comforting for the world to feel a bit smaller. And lastly, number 20, overall, I have learned and believe so strongly that experiences are always more valuable than things. When I look like bird's eye at my life and like the things I'm like happiest that I have or that I've done or whatever, it's always like travel experiences over anything that I was excited to buy or like any possession I own. Anything like that I feel like just pales in comparison to all of the laughter and the memories and the fun times and like the bad times that led to good stories. Even just being in quarantine, I didn't realize like how much I was inspired by and motivated by like traveling. Really was like the fire that like kept me going. I so look forward to the day where I'm able to go have a new experience, a new adventure, meet new people. And yeah, that's generally some lessons I've learned. So I thought it would be fun to look back, repurpose some travel footage. Feel free to share any lessons you've learned from traveling in the comments. And I will see all of you guys in my next video.